Welcome to Convince Me. We are back for week 18, last week of the NFL season. Thanks for joining us on the Power Hour, the only NFL pregame show with all the stuff you care about, none of the fluff you don't. I am Chad Millman. Over the next 30 minutes, my Action Network buddies, Nick Giffen in for Sean Koerner today. Chris Raybon and Simon Hunter will try to convince me what props, what sides, what totals we should bet for week 18 of the NFL. Plus, we have Evan Abrams with market reports that make you sound smarter than your friends. And Dr. Nick is going to take us through the latest need to know from our luck rankings. At the bottom half of the hour, Gilles, Gallant, Brian Matthews will preview the best touchdown props on the board today on the Touchdown Show. Before we begin, reminder, like this video and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. All the picks we discussed today tracked for free in the award-winning Action Network app. Download it today. All right, before we get into today's picks, let's take a look at the season-long leaderboard. I mean, it is tight. Today could be what determines the champion for Convince Me. Simon is 2 games behind Raybon in the win column. Koerner can't really make up full ground, but who knows? If he sweeps and Simon does terrible and Raybon does terrible, then at least, he'll get over that 30 win mark. Let's get to, by the way, Koerner, even though he's not on the show today, we're going to ceremoniously find out what his picks are so he can finish the season and see where he lands. In his place, Dr. Nick, what's your player prop, buddy?
Yeah, well, this isn't going to be a Sean Koerner, tackles special or anything like that. I'm going maybe as chalky as we get here. I'm taking Dallas Cowboys running back Rico Dowdle over 59.5 rushing yards. Over the last 6 games, Chad, which is about the most predictive time frame we get. I've actually done some past work to show this. So over the last 6 games, he has averaged over 100 yards rushing. Also, in that same time span, Washington Commanders have had the 9th worst defensive rushing success rate allowed. And that includes the 6th worst defensive success rate against zone rushes. And Dallas uses zone rushes at a very high rate. So that should benefit Rico Dowdle as well. And hey, this is a division rivalry game. Obviously the Commanders are playing for something here with some seeding, but Dallas wants to stick it to their division rivals as well. And game script may just not matter for Rico Dowdle since he became the clear lead back after week 8. He has cleared this number in 3 of 5 losses, averaging 78 yards per game in those 5 losses. That's almost 20 yards, above this number. And in the wins, if Dallas were to somehow win, he's cleared this in 3 or 4 wins for 92.5 yards per game. So, our projection, if you average Koerner's, Raybon's, and mine, is like 20 yards above this. Now, maybe there's a chance they pull him late, because obviously there's some news about maybe Trey Lance will be under center as well. But that nice 20-yard cushion gives us a lot of wiggle room there.
All right, it's not bad. The Cowboys, interesting team today. A lot of folks, that number has skyrocketed. And a lot of people looking at the Commanders as a team that has something to play for, and the Cowboys pretty much having nothing, but that's when it tends to bite you. Simon, what do you got?
Chad, I looked long and hard at props because it's all about the incentives. Guess who doesn't care about the incentives? This show. We are not betting on incentives here. I'm giving out Joshua Dobbs over 26.5 rushing yards. This guy's first start of the season. I'm all in on it. I love him, the pasture not. And it's really all about his matchup here against Arizona. This is a team that we've seen all season. They're happy to give up a ton of yardage between the 20s. That's just their MO. Like they run a type of zone. They let teams move the ball down the field, and they try to stop them once they get in the red zone. That's going to play out this week, it feels like, with this 49ers matchup. And then you add in the fact that both these teams really don't want to be there, right? I think a couple of guys are playing for incentives, like Kyler Murray and a couple other receivers on Arizona. This feels like the type of game that in the second half, he's going to be the only one still trying. And that's why I love this kind of bet where he's not going to give up. He's playing for backup right now. And even Kyle talked about it. He's like, I'm excited to get a good look at this kid. He came in for a couple snaps last week, had a rushing touchdown against the Lions in that game. So we know he's not scared to rush it. In his career, he's averaging over 30 yards per game rushing. So it's like clearly this kid likes to run the ball. I think he gets a ton of opportunities in this matchup against a team that just does not want to be there and while he's just playing for his career right now. So I love the passer not over 26 rushing yards.
You know what? When you first started talking about it, I'm like, he's crazy. Why would I want to bet on Josh Dobbs at what feels like a relatively big number? And then you just said something that clicked, which was in the second half, this guy, he could just be playing playground ball and having a blast, getting to play in the first full game of the season for him. He'll be fresh. Everyone else is ready to check out. Don't mind this at all, Simon. Don't mind it at all. Raybon, what do you got? We got two really fun overs. It's so exciting. It's the end of the year. It's like the last day of school. Tell me what you're going to do to make me excited to root for something big today.
All right. Well, you can root for anything in the Saints-Bucks game except Clyde Edwards-Helaire to go over 10.5 rush attempts because I'm taking his under 10.5 for the attempts. And he had 5 carries last week in his first game as a Saint. And he ended up leading them in snaps because Kendre Miller went down. But the New Orleans backfield use has been very erratic since Kamara went down a couple games ago. You've had Kendre Miller with 11 carries, Edwards-Helaire with 5 in one game, Jamal Williams with 5 over the 2 games, and then Jordan Mims was actually their lead back a couple games ago, but he was inactive last week. So now he'll be active again. It could be any of these 3 guys. This is a 3-way committee. It's kind of like Denver. Like you never want to bet the over on any running back in this kind of backfield. And on top of that, they're 14.5 point underdogs. So the Bucks already, because they have Vita Vea in the middle, people don't really want to run against the Bucks. They're facing the second fewest running back attempts this year, 17.2. And now they have their biggest spread of the year at 14.5. So they should face even less rush attempts. So that number goes down because it's reverse correlated with the spread. So love Clyde Edwards-Helaire under 10.5 rushing attempts per game. I think he's just just as likely as any of these other 2 backs to be the lead back today.
All right, look, I don't hate that one either. It's not as fun as the other ones. In honor of Dr. Nick filling in for Sean Koerner, I'm going with Rico over 59.5 rushing yards because you know what? It's the last weekend of the season. I want to have some fun. I want to root for the over. I don't want to be sweating every single time Spencer Rattler is turning around and handing the ball off. Although chances are I'm still going to bet Clyde Edwards-Helaire under 10.5 for this show. I want us all to pile on Rico, but can we wait till the end of the show so I can actually bet it at the best number and not have to get it at like 65? Nick, what is your ceiling on this just for those of us who might not be able to get it right away?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we have about 20 yards of value in our projections, a little bit lower median, like 15 or so. So I think if you can play this up to around, like you said, 65.5, 64.5, that's pretty good. It still gives us a chance in case they rest him in the fourth quarter or partway through the fourth quarter, something like that. And, maybe gets Deuce Vaughn some carries in there or something. So I'd say halfway into the 60s there.
All right. Well, Nick, you get to take it away again. We're going to talk about some spreads. What's your play?
Yeah, well, let's go right back to this Dallas game. But instead of taking Dallas Cowboys for the full game, let's look at the first half here. Take Dallas in the first half +4. I also don't mind if you want to do a first quarter play instead. We'll talk about why, but that's because Cooper Rush here, actually, crazy enough, has the #1 quarterback coverage matchup of Week 18 per fantasy points data. And when I say that, I don't mean he has the best matchup overall. Just in terms of the coverages the Commanders tend to use, Cooper Rush has been about 15 to 20% better against those coverages than he has against the coverages that the Commanders tend to use less. So he has almost 6.5 adjusted net yards per attempt versus man coverage as well as cover 2. But just 4.8 adjusted net yards per attempt versus covers 3, 4, and 6. But Washington uses covers 3, 4, and 6 at a lower rate than what Cooper Rush has faced this year. And they've used man and cover 2 at higher rates than what Cooper Rush has faced this year. Again, I'm taking the first half here because, of course, news, Trey Lance, Cowboys backup now quarterback, could see significant snaps. And in fact, third string quarterback, Will Greer, who I guess is technically fourth string, you know, with Dak Prescott out, has been activated off the practice squad and could see some snaps as well. So if you want to bet the Cowboys, I really think betting them in the first half or even the first quarter is the way to go. And that's because the Cowboys this year have, when they won the toss, chosen to receive the ball around half the time. Whereas the Commanders have deferred every single time. So it's much more likely the Cowboys will start with the ball in the first quarter, the first half here. So I think it's a good spot to take them in the first half. Plus, you know, division game, like I said, they want to stick it to their division rivals.
Last time Dr. Nick offered up a first quarter bet, I know a lot of us panelists remember it was the Cleveland Browns. They get, I think what was it, Dr. Nick? It was under 2.5 in the first quarter. They drive down the field on the opening drive, 98 yards, fumble at the 1 yard line. The bet cashes. One of the best sweats of the year.
That's right.
So a good old Dr.
66-yard run on the opening play. Yeah, we got to
first quarter, first half under for first quarter, first half bet for Dr. Nick. All right, Simon, what's your side? You have a non-cowardly full game side you want to play?
I'll never get your logic that it's cowardly to make money just on the first half. It's bizarre. Here we go. Let's go with an ugly dog to end the season. Jaguars plus 3.5. Mac Jones versus Joe Flacco. What a fitting way to end the season, Chad. And it really is all about this matchup. I don't know in what world the sports books think Joe Flacco and this Colts team should be a 3.5 point favorite over anybody, let alone a divisional rival who's coming off a pretty big win. It's interesting where we have one team that looks like they've quit these last 5 weeks. On the flip side, this Jaguar team has been playing hard for Doug Peterson. They've won 2 out of their last 4 games. They're a team that could have just rolled over and died, right? They have nothing to play for at this point. Doug knows he's out of there, right? The writing's on the wall at this point. The guys are still playing hard for him. They still care. It seems like they're a team that's really united down the stretch here. On the flip side, this Colts team, they seem like the type of team that the bags are packed. They're literally in their cars right outside the locker room that as soon as this game is over, they're heading right to the airport to go and meet their family in Cabo. It's the worst vibes you could possibly have right now, this Colts team. I read an article about their flight home, about how horrible it was. No one spoke. They got home, the media interviews, everyone's just trashing their coach, the GM at this point. It is all bad in Indy. Now you factor in that this Jags team historically, they just own this Colts team, Chad. I mean, we've always seen there's certain teams in your division that you just don't match up well against, and this is the exact scenario. So since 2020, this Jags team 2-7 against. I mean, this Colts team is 2-7 against the spread against this Jags team. So they've covered 2 times in that time frame against this terrible, terrible run with this Jags team. Go back even further, since 2015. They're 3-15 against this Jags team against the spread. So again, all the trends point to just taking this Jags team with this number. And even last night, we saw it touch 3. Luckily, it's back up to 3.5. I think there's still great value in this number. We talked about it, Chad. We love the money line of this Jaguars team. So the Jaguars, they don't care about their draft position. They don't care about any of it. They're going for the win. Mac Jones, let's back it. Give me plus 3.5.
Yeah, if there's one team that's been trying between these two, it's the Jags. And the subplot of Pat McAfee against the Indianapolis Colts organization the past couple of weeks has been outstanding. And you're referring to a story by The Athletic about all of the culture issues that are happening with the Colts. The Colts finally made themselves and finally made the AFC South relevant by completely cratering at the end of the year and then letting the Giants walk away with a win. Even when the Giants really shouldn't have won that game, the Colts could not get themselves into the win column. So I love this play. Love it. But I'll let Raybon try to convince me of what his pick is anyways.
All right, let's go with the Jets, -1, 1.5, whatever you can get it at against the Dolphins. So we see this year after year where teams that have something to play for, which the Dolphins still have a slim playoff chance. Those teams tend to struggle the most over the last 2 weeks of the season. Teams that need to win, like Miami, that are facing an eliminated team like the Jets in the last 2 weeks of the season, just 69, 105, and 40% against the spread since 1990. That's from our boy Stuckey. And Tyler Huntley, he's a big step down from Tua. I mean, you look at their career yards per attempt, Tyler Huntley's under 6. He's at 5.9. Tua's at 7.6. This year, success rate, Tua's 3rd in the league, 53.2%. Huntley is 43rd. at 38.1%. So this Jet team was up most of that game in the first meeting. They took them to overtime. Miami needed a last-second field goal at the buzzer, and then to win in overtime with Tua for that Miami team to win. Now you're in New York. You got a Miami team that really doesn't play well in cold weather. You got, it looks like 17-mile-per-hour winds, just about freezing temperatures. So I think this is just a bad spot for this Miami team. Give me the Jets.
Yeah, it is icy on the East Coast. It's so interesting. Every single week this year, professional bettors have found a way to come in on the New York Jets. And every single week this year, they have found a way to disappoint people. This number, the Jets have gone from underdog to favorite in this game. And talk about train wreck organizations. The Jets are even worse than the Colts. Yet because it's cold weather and because it's Huntley, everybody wants to run away. And because the Dolphins have something to play for, everyone wants to run away from Miami. I don't want anything to do with the Jets. If there's one scenario where I think the Jets could go against the trend and not actually cover or win this game, I think today might be the day. Give me the Jacksonville Jaguars. +3.5. Go Jags. Go Dougie Peterson. Love what you're doing down there. You gave it your all. Time to go back to South Jersey. Hit the pool halls. All right. Every single week, we love to fade the public. Let's take a look at where the majority of betting tickets are according to the Action app. For those who are new, the number of tickets generally represents who the public likes. The money percentages also available in the app indicates who the professionals like this week. 82% of the tickets on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Saints, the game Raybon just referred to. 82% of the tickets on the Chargers against the Raiders. The Chargers have something to play for, looking for that 5th seed now that the Steelers have lost. And 80% of the tickets, interestingly, on Kansas City as huge underdogs against the Denver Broncos. All right, Director of Research, Evan Abrams, going to make us smarter, make us feel better about the bets today. Evan, what do you say?
I'm going to go back to that Bucks game you just talked about. So they're laying 14.5 against the Saints, and now it's up to 83% of tickets since we've been on this show right now. So that is the biggest public side in the final week of a regular season since 2010. And not only that, Breeze in 2009 was the last 14-plus point favorite with this high of a bet percentage. So everybody and their grandmother loves Tampa Bay this week. They think they're going to cover and absolutely rout them. So fascinating to see what happens there. So I didn't even actually know Raybon was going to go in on the Jets. So it's fantastic. I have this ready. But regardless of what happens in Denver today, Miami has a chance to end at least one streak. MetLife's going to be about 28 degrees, pretty cold there. Miami has lost 11 consecutive games straight up in games under 40 degrees. Forget freezing, under 40 degrees. Their last win came in 2016. Mike McDaniel himself, 0-4 straight up, losing by 9.5 points per game in that situation. They haven't won a game in freezing temperature since 2013 behind Ryan Tannehill. And as Raybon alluded to, and I think you even said it, Chad, the Jets are now -1.5 on the line after being +2.5 a few days ago. Now, obviously, Tua out, Huntley in, but that line continues to roll towards the Jets. And I'll leave you with this. We have to talk about Sunday Night Football. So game of the year, Minnesota and Detroit, obviously battling for the 1 seed, but the story is probably the total. 56.5. It's the highest total we've seen in any game in 3 years. But how's this? I looked this one up. So 2 teams with an 80+ win percentage facing off with a total of 56 or higher. It's only been done 4 times in history. 2018, it happened twice. Mahomes and Goff, Breeze and Goff. 2010, Peyton versus Breeze in the Super Bowl. And 2007, Peyton versus Brady. That's it. So this matchup on Sunday Night Football really is going to be fantastic. Indoors, high total. I think some of us like the under there, but regardless, can't wait for that matchup.
Yeah, but Evan, how are you not telling us, did those games go over the total or under the total?
I'll look at it when, I could put it in the chat so you can say it. I mean, it's
put it in the chat.
Small sample.
How do you not give us the answer? We want the answers.
I'll tell you this. High totals like 56, 57, most of them go under, but I'll give you some stats.
Give me the numbers for those 4 games.
Easy.
And while Evan is doing that, he's going to be using a lot of the tools that you can access if you sign up for a pro subscription. If you want access to all of our experts' picks as soon as they happen, what about pro prop projections powered by Sean Koerner and Chris Raybon? You get all that plus real-time bet and money percentages with Action Pro. Use code POWER20 and get $20 off the annual rate. POWER20 for $20 off. All right, we talked a little bit about that Sunday night game. Evan just mentioned it. We're going to dig a little bit deeper, but let's get to some totals. Nick, what is your favorite total of the day?
Yeah, real quick. Also, Evan mentioned Baker Mayfield. We're in for him to throw an interception today for that most interceptions bet we had on this show preseason, 15-1, right? Amazingly, Kirk Cousins still leads that despite not playing the last couple games. So let's get those Baker INTs. But for my total, Arizona, San Francisco 49ers. I like the over, but let's go first half over again. Yes, Chad, it is okay to make money on first half bets. Look, in the last 7 years, when you have two eliminated teams playing in the final week of the regular season, it's about 60% to the over. And if the luck total, I had to get the luck rankings in here somehow. If the luck total is 2.5 or higher, those games have gone over 100% of the time, albeit not a huge sample size, but it still is 100% based off of the sample size we do have. I also love taking this first half, as kind of Simon was talking about, alluding to, while these players are still trying to get incentives or milestones, right? We talked about Kyler Murray needing some rushing yards and a rushing touchdown for an incentive. Kyle Shanahan has said he wants to get Juwan Jennings 1,000 yards, meaning Juwan Jennings needs 77 yards. That's kind of a significant number, right? That means you got to move the ball down the field. So they're going to try to do that. So why not get it early, get it out of the way, get that total over? And both of these teams defensively have fallen off. If you look at their defensive DVOA versus their recency weighted defensive DVOA, both of their recency weighted ones are worse. And you have basically a fully healthy Arizona offense against a banged up San Francisco defense. And again, kind of like that Dallas game, Arizona slightly more likely to start with the ball here since Shanahan has deferred 100% of the time in his whole career. So I think this is a spot where, you got the healthy offense against the banged up defense, potentially starting with the ball. Let's go first half over.
I mean, you teased it. What is the sample size that is 100%? Is it 2 games?
5 games.
5 games. 5 isn't terrible for something as niche and small and tiny as this.
Yeah.
Right? That's okay.
It's better than being 0-5, right?
That is true. Thank you for that. Keen analysis from Dr. Nick Giffen. Simon, what's your total?
Going with a Chiefs Denver under 40.5. And this is really all about this matchup and just how I feel that Bo Nix is just at the breaking point, right? Going back to these last couple of games, you've kind of seen him hit that rookie wall. Now he's actually facing a really good defense. I mean, you think he struggled against Cincinnati last week, Chad. Now he's going against a Spags coach defense where I don't care if they're sitting a couple key starters. I still think he's going to have these guys prepared. And they match up well, I believe, against this Denver offense. And on the flip side, the way this Chiefs team is, Andy Reid joked that he wished this game could be played with a running clock, basically. He's going to this game just trying to get this game keep moving, keep the clock moving. And the hope is that Carson Wentz doesn't have a bunch of turnovers because that could ruin this under pretty quickly. If Carson Wentz tries to play hero ball, he'll ruin it. I don't think he will. I think he'll play smart, protect the ball because he knows that's kind of the gripe on him right now about a bunch of teams in the league when they talk about Carson Wentz. It's just he's not starting anymore because of the turnovers, right? That's why he's kind of been pushed back to the second tier. So looking at this matchup, it really is all about both defense. I think will be able to play really well here. And then you factor in the fact that this Chiefs team just sat in an airport for about 5 hours yesterday, flew to this game, so they got in late to their hotel. And obviously, that's not that big of a deal, right? They're on a nice airplane. They're all professionals. But they already talked about a bunch of guys now are like, do we really have to play? Like, I feel tight after that long flight. So it is going to be interesting what Chiefs line up to actually play in this game. And on the flip side, where Denver, we know the deal. They need to win to get in. Me and you, we're like the Joe Public, right? We like the Chiefs in the spot. We feel like the number's too big. And it's because Andy Reid historically does well when he's got a big dog like this. In his career, he's 4-1 against the spread when he's a dog of 10 points or greater. And we see it time and time again. Andy Reid's second half, he just runs the ball. Like, he doesn't matter if it's Mahomes, whoever's in there, he's going to lean on that clock. And We already know that they're the best team to bet on second half unders. 27-10 historically against the spread the last 2 seasons to the under. So you just know that's the playing style of the Chiefs, right? They're dominant defense, a run-heavy offense. That's what this to me is what this is going to be. This is going to be a ball control game for this Chiefs team. Just lean on that. Wait for Bo Nix to make mistakes. He's going to make them, right? We've already seen that those last couple of weeks. So to me, this total feels way too high. The fact that you can still get it above 40 is great value to me.
I like it. I like it. I like this game a lot. I want the Chiefs.
Yeah, me too. It's
I
scary.
want the Chiefs to win this game outright because I made some stupid, idiotic money line underdog parlay bets that include the Chiefs for some big pats. We got some breaking news. One, Trey Lance is going to be starting for the Cowboys. So before we do Sunday Night Football, Nick is going to update a side. Is that right, Nick? And then also to my question from Evan before, as we head into Raybon's totals pick, the totals in those 4 games that were at 56.5, 2 over, 2 under. Raybon, do you think the tie, which way do you think the tie will go today?
I think it'll go toward the under because that is my play for tonight. Vikings Lions under 56.5. I know we're going to talk about this game in more detail, but I couldn't wait. So I'll have a more fun pick for that one if you don't like unders. But every time we see unders like this, it doesn't matter what the teams have been doing in the past. Doesn't matter how bad you think the defenses is, how good you think the offenses are. Once you start getting to 55 and above, it's too many points. And we've seen that since 2005. So the last 2 decades, totals of 55 or more, 48-29 to the under. So that's 62% over a much larger sample size, Chad, for you. And in divisional matchups, let's not forget, this is a divisional matchup, second divisional matchup as well. The under is 65% in those matchups, covering by 3.4 points per game when you have a total of 55 or higher. And let's not forget, like Detroit, their defense is just completely decimated by injuries. Maybe they get Anzalone back tonight, but they're still a defense that was sitting top 3 in DVOA most of the year. They're down to 7th after that slew of bad games, that string of bad games that they had. They're still a top 7 defense, and then Minnesota's a top 3 defense. So for a game that has a total this high, usually it's going to be 2 very bad defenses. It's not going to be a divisional matchup. Like there's a lot of things about this game, but it's indoors, which is a positive for the total. But that's about it in terms of things you would look at in a total this high. So. Going under Vikings Lions here. I think the Lions might try to run the ball a little more. Now it's number 1 seeds on the line. They've done that to protect their defense before. So give me the under 56.5 Vikes Lions.
I mean, I am so torn on this one. I love the Broncos Chiefs. Raybon, I saw off camera as Simon was talking about Broncos Chiefs, you just kept nodding your head.
Yeah.
Is that because Simon got Broncos Chiefs before you wanted before you could get in there?
Oh no, I love this. This is my favorite. Like anytime I see a total this high, that's gonna be my favorite total. But I like what Simon was saying because I'm on the Chiefs in this game as well. So I'm with the public. Maybe it's a bad call, but I totally agree with what Simon's saying about Bo Nix and that Bronco offense and the Chiefs defense and Spags.
All right, well, look, we're all with the public and we're all on the Chiefs. I like Raybon's logic here on the Lions Vikings. I'm trying to figure out. I love this game. We're all fans. We all want to watch this game. I was thinking about this game last night while watching the end of the Steelers Bengals. I'm like, at this time tomorrow night, we'll be watching Vikings and Lions. It's going to be great. We're going to get into the full Sunday Night Football conversation. I'm going with the under 56.5 in this game. Dr. Nick, before we get into Sunday Night Football, now that we know Trey Lance is starting, do you want to change your side from Cowboys first half?
Yeah, this is going to be maybe even worse. But give me the Rams plus 7.5. Give me Jimmy Garoppolo. Give me Blake Corum. Give me Jordan Whittington. These are some guys, other than maybe Jimmy G, but Corum, Whittington, we've been kind of high on this year. So these backups can still, play ball. And if the Rams win, they still get the 3 seed and avoid Detroit or Minnesota. So there's still something to play for here for the Rams. So give me the Rams plus 7.5. Love getting that hook there on the 7 as well.
Look, that number has gone crazy. It opened at 3 and now it's up to 7.5. A lot of incentives for Geno Smith in that game. $4 million worth of incentives, reachable incentives. So Geno is going to want to sling it. All right, let's talk about Sunday Night Football. We love this game. The total's 56.5. Like I said, Detroit, 3-point favorite at home. Nick, what is your play?
Oh, it's the best play on the board. Overtime, 13-1. Chad, the last time I said we had one of the highest overtime probability games in our whole database, it was the Super Bowl, and it went to overtime. It almost went to double overtime, which Stuckey and I had for 100-1. We were like a play away from double overtime there. But this is the highest overtime probability game in our database. High total games produce overtime at much higher rates than low total games. That might be counterintuitive, but it actually to me makes a lot of sense because now all of a sudden you have two offenses that can come back from double-digit deficits, can come back from oddball scores like 11 points or 18 points, something like that, So this is a spot where when you have these high totals, overtime becomes more likely. We also have indoors, which really helps the kicking games, which helps keep us on those better key numbers of like 3s and 7s a little bit better, which produces higher overtime chances as well. So I have fair odds on this at like 10.5-1. And even my worst 95% confidence interval error bar has 12-1 as fair value. So I love getting 13-1 on this.
Yeah, I don't know what a 95% confidence interval bar is, but I like what you're saying about 13-1 because that sounds like a lot of fun. And if I'm going to love this game, I'm going to want it to go for as long as possible. Simon, what do you got?
Taking Vikings +3, Chad, and the disrespect to Sam Darnold continues. What is this number? Who is this Lions team deserve to be this big of a favorite against a divisional foe that their whole offense is healthy? They got everyone back. TJ's back. All their receivers are healthy. Justin Jefferson's been cooking lately. Sam Darnold has been playing the best he's played all season these last couple of weeks. Yet they're still a 3-point dog to this Lions team that just has nothing left on defense. I mean, they almost got rolled by the 49ers last week. If Purdy didn't turn back into a pumpkin, probably would have lost that game. So just looking at this matchup, I love the fact that this Lions team is on short rest, traveling back home to play this game that I know how much it means to them, but to me, it just means so much more to this Vikings team, a team that's been doubted all season. Hell, I doubted them coming to the season. They had 6.5 win total. Now they might win this division with a 15-2 record. It's just, you can't even wrap your head around it, how far this Vikings team has come and how they've just been doubted since day one. And they didn't even doubt themselves, right? They didn't really believe in Sam Darnold. They took a rookie in their first-round pick. So it is crazy how this turned around, that this whole season's kind of bounced back for them with Sam Darnold. The fact that they're still being disrespected is interesting to me. And the fact that Dan Campbell is on short rest, I don't think people are talking about how big of a deal that is. Like, he has no real weakness, right? Since he's come the Lions head coach, they've been absolutely dominant. We know, Evans tells us every week, they're the best against the spread team since 2021. They have been incredible. But his one weakness is short rest. In his career with the Lions and the Dolphins, he's just 6-5 against the spread. That's 3-8 straight up, though, and including 2-4 straight up at home in this exact spot. So we know that his team tends to struggle here. I think the fact that they have so many pieces missing defensively and that they didn't rest starters last week, I honestly think it catches up to them this game. Give me the Vikings. Give me the +3.
Yeah, you've been leaning towards this all week. This is the most confident I've heard you sound about the Vikings at +3. And as someone who just as a fan wants the Lions to win, your confidence makes me very, very nervous. And
we need
Dr.
some craziness, right? We talked about it. It's been a boring year. Everyone that won their division, we expected them to win their division. This could be the one shocker, other than the Rams, that could throw a loop in everyone and shock they wouldn't win their division this year.
All right, Raybon, what's your pick here?
All right, so I promised I'd have a more fun pick. So let's go Jalen Naylor anytime touchdown at +305. The odds imply about a 25% chance, but he's actually scored in 6 of the 16 games this year, so that's 38%. And I think he has a good chance to score again because Detroit is going to have to prioritize Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. Simon mentioned TJ Hawkinson's also back. So Naylor becomes this forgotten man, and he gets a lot of single coverage. Detroit has given up 13 receiving touchdowns to wide receivers all year, which is very good. But more than half of them have come in the past 5 weeks when their defense has been decimated. So in a big game like this, you're going to have to go and say, okay, how do we take away Jefferson? Addison's been popping off. It's literally going to be the same thing it's been all year with Naylor, where he just gets forgotten about. He gets single coverage, and I think he has a great chance to score once again. The market's been too low on him pretty much all year round. So give me Jalen Naylor plus 305 to score.
Nick, you were nodding your head when Simon was talking about the Vikings. Do you have
I initially had the +3 in there as well, and then I remembered I had this as an overtime game, which if it's overtime, the Vikings at least cover the +3 in regulation, right? So yeah, I really like the +3 here as well for Minnesota.
Raybon, did you have a strong opinion on this game? Sides?
It's at +3, I would definitely go Vikings. If it was anything other than that, I would have no play. But at +3 with the getting that field goal push, I think is valuable, because I do think the Vikings probably are the better team right now. They're just on the road, but they have the rest advantage, as Simon alluded to. So yeah, I think Vikings are the side.
It's funny. Like, this is what makes betting so hard, is you have an emotional bias on what you want to happen, and then all the numbers start telling you the opposite is the right play. I'm going with the Vikings at +3. As much as I hate it, as much as it makes me sad, as much as I'm basically going to be rooting against my own pick, and probably going to be rooting against the pick Simon and I end up putting into our favorites contest for the last week of the year, I'm just going to go with the Vikings. It's all I can do. However, I do think all these picks are really swell. And if you want to make them a same game parlay, you can get them at plus 5,500 at Bet365. It's our last week of the season, a big, big opportunity to get overtime, to get Naylor at anytime touchdown, to get the Vikings +3. Great season, topsy-turvy, exciting season. I want to thank the production team, all of our analysts, everyone who watched. Go ahead, watch that touchdown show. Enjoy it. Cash some tickets. Good luck to us all.
Thank you, Chad, and the whole Convince Me crew, and welcome to the Touchdown Show for Week 18. I'm Gilles Gallant with the Action Network, joined as always with Brian Matthews, and each week we cover the anytime touchdown market in the NFL. We're going to have best bets for the 1 p.m., 4 p.m. Eastern games. It's Week 18, so some guys aren't playing, some guys are. We're going to navigate that. We're going to have a touchdown parlay to end the show, as well as a same-game parlay for touchdowns for Vikings-Lions. Sunday Night Football. B-Matt, we got a total of 56 in that game. Yes. Do you think we're going to see a lot of touchdowns for that nightcap of Week 18?
I hope so. I just don't want to jinx it and say definitively yes, so I hope so.
Well, and I just think with Detroit, like, they start too fast. Like, I feel like they're going to put up points. Maybe the Vikings may have to climb back in. I'm not sure if we're going to see over 56, but I do feel like we're going to see at least 2 touchdowns on each side. So I feel pretty good about what we got here. So B-Matt, let's kick off the show. We got anytime touchdown bets. We're going to start off with the lower odds. Then we're going to work our way up. We'll finish with some spicy 2 touchdown bets, maybe some first touchdown bets, some incentive bets as well. I should say that I did mute the word incentives this week just because it was getting out of control. Like, I feel like there's some point that incentive bets are worth looking at, but by the time we get to Sunday, those things are all steamed and cooked that you're pretty much out of value at this point. So, all right. So let's start off with our best bet of Week 18. And this is a guy who is familiar with the show. I've had him on the show, I believe, 3 of the last 4 weeks. And I'm going with Adam Thielen. I'm taking him for another anytime touchdown, B-Matt. I'm going to take him to score a touchdown on that Falcons secondary. So let's talk about Thielen. 5 touchdowns this year, 4 over the last 6 games. He had a 2 touchdown game last week versus the Bucs. And I think at this stage of the year, and it's easy to say being the final game of the year, he is Bryce Young's go-to wide receiver. He's led the Panthers in targets in 4 of the last 5 games. 6 red zone targets have all come over the last 6 games after he came back from injury. And also playing against a defense that plays a lot of zone. The Falcons played at the 4th highest rate, and Thielen actually leads the team in target share versus zone. And Atlanta, I mean, they're last in touchdowns allowed to wide receivers this year, B-Matt. They're 25th in defensive DVOA versus the pass. Even if they do make the playoffs, they're not stopping anybody from a passing standpoint. So I think Bryce Young could have a pretty decent game on this secondary with Adam Thielen scoring a touchdown. So Adam Thielen at plus 225 is who I'm riding with. Now, B-Matt, before you give out your pick, what do you think of Thielen in this matchup, and maybe just kind of keep riding the hot hand?
Yeah, I love this one. And I think too, especially when you get odds above, plus 200, when you're seeing it at some places at plus 150, you kind of got to go on it. And I like the fact that, you're going back to the well with a guy that's been working for you. And little bit of foreshadowing here for my mild pick.
Well, and that's kind of what I was going to say is that like I've been riding a hot hand. You've got a guy that you're going to bet this week that's also been
Yeah.
featured on this show very recently. So who do you like this week and who are you riding again?
Yeah, so week 18 is always a tricky one, but the way I like to look at it is find guys that have realistic incentives or rookies, guys that are building confidence as they head into the offseason. And one guy that's just been going haywire lately, Brian Thomas Jr. So I'm going to go Brian Thomas Jr. anytime touchdown at plus 140. And look, if you go back to it, I think the thing that scared me the most 4 or 5 weeks ago is Mac Jones, and now I go, no, man, maybe Brian Thomas is quarterback proof. He's getting the kind of volume very few guys are seeing right now, which puts him in an elite category. I always harp on volume is king, and it's kind of the way I looked at it with Malik Neighbors, 2 touchdowns last week, and thankfully that came through. And not to mention, it's a game being played indoors against that very same defense that got torched by Neighbors last week. So I'm going to go Brian Thomas Jr. anytime touchdown, 5 touchdowns in his last 5 games. I just think they continue to force feed him the ball as the season comes to a close.
Well, he scored a 68-yard touchdown on them earlier in the year. Now it was with Trevor Lawrence, a quarterback, but
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest thing that was scaring me over the last few weeks is Mac Jones. Are we going to feel okay with him being the one to throw this ball, especially like after the first couple of starts or even like against the Vikings and Detroit where he just looked terrible. He's actually started to be a little bit more of a competent passer over the last 4 weeks. I think it's also helps that those games probably didn't mean anything for the Jags, so there's less pressure on him to perform, but it doesn't matter because that's still okay with us from an anytime touchdown perspective. So Brian Thomas Jr., very solid rookie campaign. We saw even like Ricky Pearsall, for example, last week with the Niners, where the team is starting to just feature a rookie a lot more at the second half of the season. So, all right, Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be BMAT's best bet for week 18. So if you want access to all of Action Pro projections, make sure to sign up for our annual subscription that is currently on sale. Access includes exclusive player prop picks from Sean Koerner, other members of the Action Analytics team. You also get access to exclusive expert articles, our best spread, money line, and total bets, along with real ticket and money percentages. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today. Use code POWER20 at sign up. One more time, that's POWER20 at sign up for $20 off. All right, B-Matt, let's talk about Sunday Night Football. Great way to cap off the season with 2 explosive offenses in the Minnesota Vikings and Detroit Lions. We got a total of 56 in this game. So if we end up seeing an over, we are going to see offensive fireworks likely on both sides. Starting with Jahmyr Gibbs at minus 290, right at the top, really taking the role now with David Montgomery out, followed by Aaron Jones at minus 120. Justin Jefferson at minus 110. Then you've got the sun god, Amon-Ra St. Brown, around even odds. Jameson Williams, the guy that we used to play over 2-1, now all the way down to plus 130 rather. And Jordan Addison followed by him at plus 135. And then you've got the usual suspects to round out the final 4, Samuel Laporta, TJ Hawkinson, Tim Patrick, and Jalen Naylor at plus 440 to round out that top 10. So B-Matt, looking at these odds, I mean, it's pretty indicative that we're going to see scoring. I think the main thing that I would say, though, is I'm looking at a parlay for this game. I don't really want to put Jahmyr Gibbs on this parlay. It just minus 295.
No, yeah.
So, but I do think that there are a couple of guys that we should have on here. And I think the good starting point would just be to put Jettis and St. Brown right there. They're both around minus 110, even odds. I think that's a good starting point.
I think can I interject here? I do happen to have my USC Trojans hat on, and I'm seeing that we do have Jordan Addison on the board here. So if I think an Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jordan Addison, and then maybe another Lions player.
I think Jefferson and Addison are just going to destroy the man coverage tonight. Like, I think Sam Darnold, like, I'm not ready to proclaim him like in the MVP race or anything like that. But at the same time, he's just been really good in Kevin O'Connell's offense. And so, all right, so let's do this then. We've got Jefferson. We're going to add St. Brown, and then we're going to add Addison. We should add a 4th leg, but I think if we're going to add a 4th leg, it's got to be a Lions player. How would you feel if we put Sammy Ballgame 4th, Sam Laporta and we'll round that out. Right now, I'm looking at DraftKings. I'm seeing all 4 of these guys, if you parlay them, at 26-1. It's, again, I'm a little uneasy about putting 4 guys touchdowns specifically on a parlay, but again, we're seeing total of 56. These are 2 of the most explosive offenses in the NFL, who lead the NFL in explosive play rate kind of thing. So I think this is one of those games where we can make the exception. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to put a full unit on it at like 26-1, but maybe like 0.1 or 0.2, something, pizza money kind of thing is, I think, what we want to look at here for this kind of same game parlay. B-Matt, you're the guy who kind of, to me, is one of the best parlay bettors out there. What do you think of putting these 4 legs and putting 4 touchdown bets on a ticket like that?
Well, here's what I would say. Normally, I wouldn't advise to do that. But when you got a game that's, I mean, you have 56.5 total points, and no matter where you look on the board, the odds are steamed regardless. We have a pretty good picture, and it's funny, like both of these teams struggle against, the pass game. They're explosive wide receivers on the other side, quarterbacks who are playing really well right now. The game is indoors, no weather concerns. So I'm all for it on this one. I think we might get fireworks.
All right, so 26-1, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We're going to put small stake on it. But yeah, these 4 players, if we can get all 4, I think we're going to be feeling pretty good at 26-1. So that's going to be the same game parlay for Sunday Night Football. Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jordan Addison, and Sam Laporta comes out to 26-1 at DraftKings. All right, B-Matt, let's now move to our second best bet of the day. And you are looking at the Cardinals 49ers game. What do you like?
Yeah. So again, I'm trying to find people or, players with something to play for. And we all know late season Josh Dobbs is a thing. So Josh Dobbs, anytime touchdown scorer at plus 330. Look, I mean, the guy came in, when Brock Purdy got injured last week, and all he did in less than a quarter of football was score another rushing touchdown. So look, this team is going to be without Deebo Samuel. George Kittle is questionable coming in. So, I think we see a healthy dose of Juwan Jennings. But if you go back to, the last time we saw Dobbs in an extended run, it was with, the Vikings. And the guy scored 3 rushing touchdowns in like the last 5 games. So it's something that he is familiar with doing whenever he's filled in as a starter. And look, I just think at plus 330, I think that Josh Dobbs anytime touchdown is a good look today.
I love Dobbs. He's actually one of the legs on my 180 challenge this week. But the reason why I think I love Dobbs here is I remember last year when he was with the Vikings, and when I was doing the recap show for the Action Network podcast, like I was saying that Josh Dobbs is the best story in the NFL, just with how he was traded away from Arizona, comes into Minnesota after the Kirk Cousins injury, immediately is rushing touchdowns, winning games for the Vikings. And now you're with the Niners team that obviously is very battered, but they're still going to have some players that he'll be able to excel with. And again, at plus 330, I think this is a solid spot playing against the Cardinals, who not exactly a strong run defense, a little bit of a revenge game spot as well for if anybody likes that kind of angle. So I think at plus 330, that's a solid look for Josh Dobbs to score a touchdown. And I love the angle of him kind of like auditioning maybe for another team here next year, whether it be a backup role or whatever. So maybe calling it on himself to rush for a touchdown when they get to the red area. All right, now B-Matt, I'm gonna do some more pain this week, and I'm looking at Bears anytime touchdown scores, and I feel like every week you and I try to recapture this magic of what maybe Caleb Williams could do, and we've fallen on our face. I have no way of like you bet on Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. I bet on all 3, and whatever reason the week that we bet on them doesn't seem to come through. But I'm stubborn, and I think it's actually going to come through this week. I'm taking DJ Moore for an anytime touchdown today against that Packers secondary because he's around plus 300. And B-Matt, I think you know this. Like, I rarely mention this portion of a handicap, but he's due. Like, I really hate using that as an angle, but again, he is due. Like, he has done everything but score touchdowns in this offense this year. He leads the team in red zone targets, snaps played, catches, targets. Only 5 touchdowns. And now you're playing against this Packers team. It's going to be cold. They're playing zone at a top 8 rate. They're probably going to be shorthanded on defense. Like right now, based on Sunday morning, 4 starters are out, 3 in the secondary. No Quay Walker, for example. And according to our Action Pro projections, which are powered by Sean Koerner and our Action Analytics team, DJ Moore has a 6% touchdown odds edge. It's one of the biggest. It's the biggest one of the game. It's one of the biggest of Week 18. Also, I would also mention, not really playing for an incentive, but it is worth noting that he is at 880 receiving yards. He's 120 receiving yards from 1K, and I think that's important just from a contract standpoint. So I just think that the Bears will probably make an extra effort to give him the ball. And as you say, man, volume is king. And DJ Moore, I think, is going to get that volume. So at 3-1, that's who I like to score in a very cold, blustery game, likely in Green Bay. So, BMAT, before we talk about another bet that we like, what do you think of me trying to kick the can down the road again and going after a Bears anytime touchdown score?
Gilles, I think this says something about your character, man. There's no quitting you. You know, just when most people would fold, tuck tail, and run away, you're buckling up and betting on another Bear. So let's go, man. This is the week.
Well, there's a fine line between perseverance and stubbornness, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think
we'll figure out where we are on that after this week.
Well, if he hits, then it's all perseverance. If he loses, that's just me being stubborn, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
All right. So DJ Moore, anytime touchdown is my second best bet of Week 18. But BMAT, we got to revisit Week 17 because Davante Adams, I feel like, let us down. Davante Adams and the whole Jets team this season has been just a big disappointment. And I am not ready to write them off. You want to talk about stubbornness? I think that what we need to do this week, BMAT, is we need to go right back to Davante Adams again. What do you think about us doing a collab bet? We don't really do a lot of collabs, but this is one this week that I think we could collab on for Davante Adams for an anytime touchdown at plus 145. What do you think about doing that with me this week?
Yeah, that's a no-brainer. I had it last week. Look, this guy's caught Aaron Rodgers' 200th touchdown pass, his 400th touchdown pass, and Mother Nature dealt us a bad hand last week, so we didn't get to see any touchdown passes from Aaron Rodgers. But while that wasn't great, it gives us the opportunity to say, look, Davante Adams has been vocal about wanting to catch, touchdown 500. Aaron Rodgers has talked about this could potentially be his last game. Now, I don't know how much of that is Aaron Rodgers being Aaron Rodgers, or if this might be his last game. But if it's his last game, he's going out throwing to his guy. And I don't see a world where if Davante Adams is playing in this full game and he's healthy and Aaron Rodgers is throwing him the ball, that he's not, at least having a productive game. So, Davante Adams.
This bet is a lot of coach speak this week. So, you know what I mean? Like with, talking about Davante talking about he wants to catch the 500th touchdown. He wants to play spoiler to the Dolphins because they eliminated them from the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's the reason that we need to bet this, because obviously there's metrics alone, like 7 touchdowns this year, 5 touchdowns over the last 5 games. Billion red zone targets. Like, it's just been, there's like Garrett Wilson is not even a part of this offense when Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams are in the game. Of course, naturally, Garrett Wilson scores a touchdown after Aaron Rodgers leaves the game last week with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback.
Yeah.
But I think Davante Adams, that's who I like to score a touchdown in that game, especially at the 4 p.m. slate where a lot of those games you're seeing totals below 40. Maybe some quarterbacks on either side aren't playing. At least on this side, I feel like Aaron Rodgers, if he's got any backbone, he's going to want to at least try to finish this game and finish this game strong. 500 passing touchdowns. Davante Adams is going to be the one to catch it. So that's what we are going to collab on this week. Davante Adams for an anytime touchdown at plus 145. Now, BMAT, it is time for the spicy touchdown bets. We need to get off the last week's schneid. We need to look at this week. Last week, you had Malik Neighbors for 2 touchdowns. That came through at 20-1. You've got 2 spicy touchdown bets this week. What do you like?
Yeah. So, look, I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with another rookie receiver and another LSU rookie wide receiver. I'm going to go with, we're going to go Brian Thomas Jr., 2 touchdowns. I like him for
Makes
1.
Sense.
It's an amazing matchup. Like I said, Malik Neighbors just absolutely torched them. So 2 touchdowns. I'm going to go a half unit on both of these picks. So a half unit on Brian Thomas, 2 touchdowns. And then I'm going to do, I know how much you love your incentive plays.
All right, don't make fun. Come on. What's this one that you like?
So,
I know you like this one.
This one, though, I like. And I logged this one early in the week when I saw that there were some decent lines in the Action app. And it's going to be Kyler Murray. It's going to be 50-plus rushing yards and a rushing touchdown for Kyler Murray. So, all right, this one goes hand in hand. It's, I know we don't use yards on the show really ever, but This one kind of goes hand in hand because it's an incentive based where he just so happens to need 50 or more rushing yards and a rushing touchdown to get a $750,000 incentive, activated for him. So I just think, and it's funny if you go back and look at this matchup, like he almost has done this in his last 2 games against San Francisco. So, even without an incentive. So let's see how bad Kyler wants it. And at plus 900 at Caesars, I'll go ahead and go half unit on Kyler Murray there.
Well, if you recall, that was actually the game. I had him at 3-1 for an anytime touchdown against the Niners because he hadn't scored a rushing touchdown yet this year, and then proceeds to have a 50-yard rushing touchdown pretty much immediately in the first quarter. So I think that's the one thing to keep in mind is that when you look at the anytime touchdowns that he has scored this season, especially the first 2, which were against the Niners and the Chargers, both of them were just poor coverages in the secondary, and he just took off from pretty much his own territory, and that pretty much sealed the bet for you. So that's the one thing that's beautiful about this spicy touchdown bet for Kyler is that not only does it hit incentives, but it is something very achievable that he could do on one play. And that's something that you can't really say very often. Like Brian Thomas Jr. still has to catch 2 touchdowns, whereas Kyler, you could do that on legitimately one play. So I love this. So Brian Thomas Jr., you are laddering his touchdowns. You've got him for an anytime and 2 touchdowns. And Kyler Murray, you're going to take him for an anytime paired with 50 rushing yards at 9-1. All right, so B-Matt, you gave out a quarterback earlier in Josh Dobbs in the Week 18 and looking at maybe auditioning for a new job. Well, I've got 2 spicy touchdown bets. One is going to be an anytime touchdown. Another one is 2 touchdowns. The anytime touchdown, I am too excited. I'm probably super excited about it because Carson Wentz for an anytime touchdown right now is 10-1 at FanDuel. And
there you go.
Against that Broncos team, I'm so excited to bet this. So I'm going to be putting a quarter unit on Carson Wentz for an anytime touchdown at 10-1. And I'm going to pair that with an incentive bet. I know I just talked about how I don't like doing them because Zach Ertz for 2 touchdowns at 22-1. And so I'll break down Zach Ertz in a second, but let's just talk about Wentz for a minute because Wentz, he's done this before. If you remember last year, Week 18 for the Rams against the Niners, 17 carries and a rushing touchdown. In fact, why it was funny is that it was the battle of backups between Carson Wentz and Sam Darnold. Both of them go on for a rushing touchdown. Obviously, Darnold is doing much better than what Wentz is doing at this point. But then the other thing, too, just with the Chiefs, like you can't rest everybody. So there are still going to be some key starters on offense, specifically on the offensive line that are going to be playing. And the Broncos, their rushing defense has just been a little bit suspect, especially over the last month. They've actually given up a quarterback rushing touchdown in 2 of the last 3 games as well. So Carson Wentz for an anytime touchdown at 10-1 is my first spicy bet. Now let's talk about Zach Ertz because naturally everybody wants to talk about he's got 2 touchdowns or he needs two touchdowns for the incentive to hit. He scored 2 touchdowns last week, for example, but why we want Zach Ertz? So just as a heads up, I've laddered this. I've taken his anytime touchdown at plus 250 for 0.75 of a unit, and then I put 0.25 of a unit on the 2 touchdowns, just so that way it's 1 unit total. But basically why we're taking Ertz here is at 22-1. I think the odds are important to make sure of people knowing because right now I'm seeing some books out there, they're advertising the incentives. Right now he's around 12-1. That's to me like where if you're waiting until this point and you're betting it at 12-1, you've missed the boat. You don't bet it because you want this at over 20-1. Context is key. The odds are key. The incentives are nice, but the odds have to reflect that. So that's why if you're not getting it at least 20-1, don't bother taking it with Zach Ertz. But now Ertz playing the Cowboys. The Cowboys have allowed 6 touchdowns to tight ends this year. They're 22nd in defensive DVOA against tight ends. And one of those 6 touchdowns was actually to Ertz when they played a few weeks ago. So for me, I think Zach Ertz, if you're going to play an incentive bet at 2 touchdowns today, that's one of the guys you want to do it, but make sure to get it over 20-1 or 20-1 or higher, because once you get below that threshold, the odds have just been steamed too much. It's not worth playing. So before we move on to our parlay of the week, the 180 challenge, B-Matt, I know I just kind of badmouth, incentives and whatnot, but what do you think of the Ertz 2 touchdown bet more so than the Wentz touchdown?
Yeah, I'll tell you this: if I didn't know that you had gone to Ertz, if you hadn't told me that would have been something I considered for a spicy pick. So I like the pick I went Kyler instead with a different incentive. So, hey, look, I think it's about choosing the right ones, and I like this one.
Well, I think it's just not to keep going back on this. It's just like, think about Mike Evans. We love Mike Evans. Like, that's one of our favorite guys to bet.
Yes.
But it's baked in there. It's like minus 170 to score an anytime touchdown today. So that's what I'm saying, is that it's one thing when we're getting it at plus 140, plus 135. Once you get down to minus 170, forget about it. Just move on to a different game, different bet. It's okay to not bet it, and you don't have to be part of that action to take a bad number just to play it, right? So that's really it. It's just playing the numbers. Don't play a Mike Evans incentive bet or an incentive bet at a bad number just to be part of the action. That would be my piece of advice. So, all right, now let's move to the 180 challenge, BMAT. We're going to keep this short and sweet. I love Jalen Tolbert in this game, but I have bet him individually at plus 450. But to be honest, when I was looking at Sean Koerner's Action Pro touchdown projections, the biggest edge this week is actually his teammate Kevontae Turpin at 5-1 against this Commanders defense. So I'm gonna put that as one of the legs this week at 5-1. That way you don't have to do as much heavy lifting on the second leg here to get us to 18-1 or higher. So Kevontae Turpin at 5-1 is who I'm gonna put as the first leg for the 180 challenge. BMAT, who should we add with that?
So I said I like to find guys, like either rookies or guys that are getting some increased opportunity. And I'm laughing because I'm taking a look at the show notes and I just see BMAT equals, oh yeah, Jalen Coker. So we're going to go with the Cokehead pick. And we're going to go Jalen Coker at plus 330. Look, I just think they're passing the ball, right? We know that. And I just think when you've got a rookie, I love Thielen. I think they're going to be throwing the ball around. I just think that Coker's a guy who's shown big playability, and he's a rookie too. So it would be a good idea to send him off on a high note, at least into the offseason.
Well, he's a big body in the slot too. And I think that's the other thing, is that I don't think people were kind of fully aware of what he could do when he was coming out of Holy Cross. And now you've got Thielen, who's, playing well out of the slot as well, but will line up out wide. And Xavier Legette and David Moore just not quite there. Like, even Legette right now still dealing with a little bit of a wrist injury. David Moore is on his fifth team in his career at this point. I'm not sure if they're going to want to give him as much run, being a veteran that he is. So when you pair those two together, of Kevontae Turpin at 5-1 and Jalen Coker at plus 330, you're getting around plus 2,300 right now at BetMGM. Now, the odds on the screen, it says 24-1. Full disclosure, at DraftKings this morning, it was 24-1, but the odds have shifted. So in order to still get odds close to that, you'll have to do it at BetMGM. So those two together, when you parlay those, comes out to around 23-1 at BetMGM. All right, BMAT, that's all for today. We're pretty much set. I've got 4 picks. You've got 4 picks. We've got some touchdown parlays on deck. We've got a collab bet on Devontae Adams. So I want to remind everybody, the Touchdown Show will be back here next week for NFL Wildcard Weekend, all part of the Action Network Power Hour with Convince Me. And if you missed today's show for week 18 and you want to get our picks, just download the Action app. All of our touchdown bets are tracked there. You get them as soon as we bet them with pick notifications. So I want to thank everybody for joining us for week 18 for the Touchdown Show. He's BMAT. I'm Gilles Gallant. Bon chance.